and Shalom. My name is Al, and this is our third part in our series, Matthew 24, Israel, the fig tree, and the signs of our times. For any of you that are interested in apocalyptic prophecy, Daniel, Zechariah, to the book of Revelation, this is a great summary chapter that brings it all together and will give you exactly what is taking place in the signs of these days. And for my Jewish friends, I highly encourage you to follow this along because you're not getting this from the rabbis. Okay, what are we looking at? This is the city of Jerusalem. As I told you in our last video, it's actually two cities. We have the old city in front of us, which is truly ancient, and the history of it is very deep. And then we have the modern city behind it. We're standing on top of the Mount of Olives, which is almost 3,000 feet tall. Looking down, at the bottom is a valley called the Kidron Valley. The land rises up, and geologically there's actually a mountain ridge running all along here from south to north, and it looks something like this. Now, we first pick it up in Abraham, Genesis 22, where he's told to go to a land of Moriah. He's coming from down south in Beersheba, and he comes to this land. The time he got here, nobody was here except for himself, his son, and his donkey. And this is what we call Moriah, or the mountain of Yah. So he comes here, he offers his son as a sacrifice. The father spares the son, but in the process, Moriah, the mountain of Yahweh, is identified. 2,000 years in the future, Yeshua, Jesus, will be crucified in Golgotha to the north. We pick it up again in Moses in Deuteronomy 12. After he had taken the Israelites out of Egypt, he is precisely told where to set the name of Yahweh when the Israelites come into the promised land. And then we finally pick it up in King David in 1 Chronicles 21, where after his run-in with Satan, who tempts him to number Israel, 70,000 Israelis fall in the process, and Gad, his seer, tells him, sacrifice on the threshing floor of Onan the Jebusite. David is now in his city, the city of David, and he finds the exact place in his city where to sacrifice. And from that, the positive point is he finds out where to set the name. He now wants to build a house to the Father, to his name. However, the Father says, it's not for you to build a house to my name, but one of your sons. You see the allusion in the future to what's taking place. But here, in 2 Chronicles chapter 3, we read, then Solomon began to build the house of Yahweh at Jerusalem in Moriah, where Yahweh appeared to David his father, in the place that David had prepared in the threshing floor of Onan the Jebusite. And threshing in Hebrew, one of the interpretations of it is holy. So you've got to get beat up sometimes before you know which way is up. Okay, that being said, what is the significance? The significance is a lot of you are waiting for what we erroneously refer to as the Jewish temple to be built. First of all, you should know that a temple is for and are for pagan gods. This is the house of Yahweh. It is not a pagan temple. It's not a Jewish temple. When this house was built by Solomon, there were 12 tribes. Jacob had 12 sons. Judah was just one of them. Now I know you refer to this temple as the final act of what has to take place today, and that's true, and it's kind of not true. But we'll follow Matthew 24 and we'll put it all together so you can see what is the significance is, and the signs that are taking place now will validate what we're talking about. You will find out why was the house destroyed, who destroyed the house, how it was destroyed. But all of this is part of the big picture which we have started in our presentation from the beginning, Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, Bereshit, and you're going to see how it affects all of this, and this is the means by how the Father is working in our world today. Continuing with the presentation, we are now at the point of talking about hardcore biblical prophecy come true. We're looking now at a close-up of the Middle East, and here we see Israel, here on the globe in the middle, Moscow to the north, Mecca to the south, Beijing to the east, and the USA to the west. But here in the Middle East, we have Israel, Jerusalem in the middle, and what we see is the Father has set his Moriah, his people, right in the middle of all of these other pagan empires. We have the Egyptians to the southwest, we have the Assyrians, Babylonians, Persians to the northeast, the Greeks to the north, and the Romans further to the west. But all of these people will come into contact with Israel as these empires are warring against each other. They will go back and forth historically, raiding, attacking, setting up their blood lineage kingdoms, revolutioning, rebelling against each other. But it always depends upon what Israel's relationship is with the Father. Because what the Father is doing, he is using these different pagan empires to punish his people when they do not listen to him. And they're still figuring this out today. The rabbis haven't given you this straight. I am, because it is written here. And there's a test to all of this. And to find this test, we have to take a look at the scripture and see how it is validated. And we're going to start off with the house of Yahweh has been destroyed. Everybody knows this today. You're waiting for your third Jewish temple, which I say is the house of Yahweh. But when Yeshua, Jesus, went to this house, he just had a heated conversation with the Pharisees, and we pick it up in Matthew 24, verse 1. And it says, "And Jesus went out and departed from the house, and his disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the house." Who were his disciples? Fishermen from Galilee, the country. And now they're in the big city, and they're very impressed with the stone columns, the workmanship, the gold embellishments, and they told him so. But in his indignation, he says to them, "You see these things, I tell you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down." He left the city. He exited the temple complex, walked up the Mount of Olives, and sat down in the middle of it in a graveyard, a olive orchard, away from everybody, and his disciples came to him to ask him this. "And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, 'Tell us, when shall these things be, And what will be the sign of your coming? The King James says the end of the world. It's not the end of the world, it's the end of an age. Then another age begins. Then another age after that. You pastors have really confused your flocks, and I have to say that you're going to pay a heavy price for this as time goes by, as we shall see. And I want my Jewish friends to know this is not a Jewish Christian documentary. This is a scriptural documentary, because you can all validate this. The next chapter we come to for the test is Deuteronomy 18:21. And it says this: "And if you say in your heart, how shall we know the word which Yahweh has not spoken? And when a prophet speaks in the name of Yahweh, if the thing follows not, doesn't come to pass, that is a thing which Yahweh has not spoken, and the prophet has spoken presumptuously, and you need not be afraid of him." Then the question is, why didn't the Israelites listen to their prophets? And the answer is that much of what they had to say takes time to come into being. Whereas the false prophets, like today, will tell you what you want to hear and make it easy for you, and tell you whatever you're doing, it's all right. However, when we pick it up in Deuteronomy 28, this is what it says. And I want you Israelis to consider this. Chapter 28, verse 1. "And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken, listen to me diligently, unto the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, to observe and do all his commandments, which I command you this day, that Yahweh your Elohim shall set you high above the nations of the earth. He will bless you. He will bless you. He will bless you." But finally we come to verse 15, and it says this: "But it shall come to pass, if you will not listen to the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, the Almighty, to observe and do all his commandments and do his statutes," all of these negative things, these horrible things he will bring upon you, such as the plagues of Egypt. And then finally, we go to 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 19, regarding the house of Yahweh. And this is what he tells Solomon: "But if you turn away and forsake my statutes and my commandments which I set before you, and shall go and serve other gods and worship them, then I will pluck you up from the roots from my land which I have given you. And this house which I have sanctified for my name will I cast out of my sight, and I will make it a proverb and a byword among all the nations. And this house which is high shall be astonishment to everyone that passes by it, so that he shall say, why has Yahweh done this thing to the land and to this house? And it shall be answered, because they forsook Yahweh their Almighty of their fathers, which brought them out of the land of Egypt, and laid hold of other gods, and worshipped them, and served them. Therefore he has brought all of this upon them." And then we go to Daniel chapter 9. Daniel was the first aliyah, the first wave that was taken captive by the Babylonians about 610. And it says in verse 4, "I, Daniel, I prayed to Yahweh, my Elohim, and made my confession and said, O Yahweh, the great and dreadful Elohim, keeping the covenant and mercy to them that love him, and to them that keep his commandments. We have sinned, and have committed iniquity, sin, and have done wickedly, and rebelled, everyone by himself, and doing his own things and listening to his judgments. Neither have we hearkened to thy servants the prophets, which spoke in your name to our kings and our princes and our fathers and to the people of the land. So when we put this all together, we're going to start to see that Yeshua is prophesying what Daniel had already prophesied. Daniel was only quoting what Moses had already written. And it all goes back to the test. And thereby, it goes back to what is happening today and the signs of our times, and how Matthew 24 is an extension of all of this, bringing about the Father's full plan. And it involves Jews, Israelis, and the rest of us too, as we shall see. So come on.